Immigration Task Force. Made some really great progress at our last meeting. As you all know, we completed our review of the Metro Departments and offices policies as they relate to complying with requests from federal immigration authorities. We finalized the key components of our policy related to the way that departments or offices would report those to the mayor's office. And we conducted a very, very brief review of policies from peer cities, mostly Austin. We will continue that today. As you guys have seen over email in the last few days, or I guess since last week, we'll finalize the draft report to the mayor, which is due by Friday, but we always like to be early on our deadlines. So we, shared a draft of that. We'll be finalizing that. We'll take another quick look at sample policies, and then this is the meeting where we've set aside some time to hear from members of the public, so we will do that as well. And I'll talk a little bit more for the members of the public who are here about that process in just a second. But I have to say, so I was thinking about the work of this task force over the weekend, and I just want to say how proud I am to have been associated with all of you. I think lots of folks around this table maybe often are sitting on other sides of the table from each other. But over the last 4 meetings, you guys, I think, really have put the city first, demonstrated an absolute willingness on all parts to work together, and made some real progress while staying focused on our scope of work. And that is rare, and I just want to say that I am really, really grateful for that. So thank you. And thanks to y'all, we will be delivering a final product that I think we can all be proud of. So for the members of the public who have joined us today, if you've spoken at council meetings before, that's the same process that we will be using here. I see a sign-up sheet going around right now. So once we begin the public comment portion, which will come a little bit later in the meeting, we'll ask that you line up or just speak in the order that you signed up on the sign-up sheet. And as with the council meetings, each person will have 2 minutes to speak. If you have any questions about that process, Audra in the mayor's office, I'm sure, can walk you through it as well. So that'll be our goal. And again, so what we're going to do first is review the sample policies, because we've got to have done that in order to finalize our draft report, which we will do next, and then we will begin our public comment period. So let's get to the sample policies. So as you all know, we reviewed the Austin policy at our last meeting. It was a resolution passed by the City Council in Austin. And what we found instructive about it was that it dealt not only with communications initiated by federal immigration enforcement, but also communications initiated by folks in the Austin city government. So I have asked Mary Catherine to walk us through a couple of other policies, and then I know I'm sort of a broken record on this, but if anybody else has any other model policies that they would like to share, now is absolutely the time. So I see Mary Catherine with lots of paper there.
Thank you for copying.
Yes. She is handing around some sample policies that we can take a look at.
So let me just start out by saying that the Turk document that I handed out or somehow disseminated
I thought it was, I need more of that.
At the first meeting is sort of a summary of the various types of policies that you see across the country. It's very hard to find a policy which sort of in its entirety is applicable to Nashville or relevant for Nashville or would be appropriate for Nashville. What we found is, or what I have found most helpful in looking at other policies, sorry, were there not enough things, is looking at the different types of policies in the different areas that they touch onto. So what I have given you all today is 3 samples of sort of different areas of policies. If you want to look first at the one from Denver, the Denver one is, I think, a pretty good example of a policy pertaining to schools. And a lot of policies from different places sort of mix and match. They'll deal with 2 of the areas or different things. But this is sort of a self-contained policy addressing schools and interaction between the educational system and immigration. So, as I said, it's an example of that. And I'm going to just sort of summarize them because some of the policies get a little long. We don't want to spend a lot of time today just sitting here reading because that would be terribly boring for any audience watching. The next one, if you want to look at, is the Vermont one. And on that, it's Part 8 8B, Roman numeral 8B. So you don't, there's a lot of there that you don't actually need to look at. But it's on the third to last page. So, I'm sorry, second to last page. So it says immigration status. And what this is about is this policy is geared directly toward police. And overall, the policy is about lack of bias or eliminating bias in policing. This specific section requires that a stop may not be initiated based on suspected immigration status. Suspected immigration status may not be based on racial differences or language. I think they say language. That stopping officers may not inquire about a person's immigration status unless it is directly relevant to the crime for which they are being stopped. And third, that it is not local police's job to make arrests for immigration crimes. It is technically a federal crime to have entered, but there's no jurisdiction beyond the border for that, but to be deported and then re-enter. But this says that that is not something that that local police should involve themselves in because it's a federal issue. So that's the Vermont one. The Vermont one is police focused. And then finally the San Miguel County one. That one is geared more toward jails. Many of the policies focus on detainers as a sort of first hurdle. Obviously, detainers are not something that we have been dealing with here. What is interesting about this policy is that in addition to just putting limits on detainers, it requires that detainers shall not be placed unless they meet internal standards. So the jail or the county has its own standards for when is an immigration detainer worth having and when is it not. But beyond that, the policy requires that jail employees or anyone in the jail system should not ask about immigration status or place of birth, because place of birth obviously is often used as a proxy for immigration status. So again, these are sample policies covering 3 separate areas. None of these policies would necessarily be, I give these as examples of types of policies. I think the best policy or the most applicable policy to what we've been looking at here is the Austin policy from last time, because that's a policy that, well, one, Austin is in somewhat similar situation to Nashville politically, in the political environment, and 2, it's a nice sort of cabined policy. It doesn't involve detainers. It doesn't involve a lot of the things which are really outside of the scope of our task force.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. Does anybody have any questions for Mary Catherine or thoughts for the group about the policies that were just shared? Okay, hearing none. Let's turn to the draft report that you all should have a copy of. You got it in your email, and I did make some tweaks. Thank you so much to all the folks. So that man in the middle of the night, she was working on this, and I am really grateful. Got a very concerning timestamp on an email from her showing that she's very dedicated to the work of this. But so thank you so much to all of the folks who shared their great feedback. I made those changes over the weekend. They are reflected in the draft final report that you see here. So I'll just give you a moment to take a look. I didn't make what I would describe as any really concrete change, nothing that didn't change the conclusions of the report or anything big. But wanted to give you a minute to look through that, and then also just to walk you through the attachments. So let me do that real quickly first. So attachment A is just the survey that we sent to those 12 metro departments and offices. Attachment B is the responses that we got back from those departments and offices, and we've been looking at those over the course of the last couple of meetings. And then attachment C is that Austin policy. So that's what's in the attachments. Now I'm going to stop talking and just give you a second to read. This makes for scintillating television.
Right.
For the members of the public who got here after we gave the instructions, I just wanted to give you all a heads up about the process for making public comments. Welcome to all of you. We're going to follow the same rules that we follow at Metro Council meetings, which essentially means sign up with Audra. And then we'll deliver, everybody's got 2 minutes to share thoughts, and we'd ask that you just speak in the order that you signed up on the list, and Audra can help us remember who's where on the list. And I guess from a logistics standpoint, the room is small enough, I don't think we need mics, but, you know, maybe just come to the front and speak when it's time. Starting to see some heads up. Maybe one more minute to review. And again, you got this over email, so I promise this isn't.
All the attachments are just what we've seen before, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Where in this is, maybe I'm missing it, the recommendation for training for Metro employees?
It is at the bottom of the section, the page 4 here. The task force recommends that each department office develop internal processes and trainings that are consistent with these recommendations.
And we're letting the departments decide how far down the totem pole to go up for the trainings? Like,
I mean, I don't think it's the purview of this
Yeah, that's what
task
I'm-
force to probably figure out that, but that might be an important next step for somebody. Maybe look up when you're done so I don't see. Hey, okay. All right. Questions, comments, edits, copy edits, big edits, revisions, what you got?
You know I'm going to have an opinion.
Please share.
A couple of things. One is just under the types of actions with, and I should have.
What page
thought
are
about
you?
this the other day. I'm on page 4.
Yep. Federal action triggering reporting policy.
Yes, and then as they're repeated below, just to maybe insert the word routine.
On the
Just
first one?
on any of them that, you know, so I'm most concerned about the third one, but as Anna has brought up many times, one person may think something is an emergency, one person may think something, I think, conceivably is a practice. So I think anything that's out of the routine would maybe help clarify that a little more.
So just to clarify, so the first one, for instance, would say communications between federal immigration authorities and the department/office pursuant to routine department office policy or practice?
I think it actually could be left out of that one, and I think it's mostly concerning in the third one.
Third one. That are not pursuant to routine.
Yes. Or policy or routine practice, maybe.
To department office policy, yeah, or routine practice. Everybody okay with that?
So that'll be on both of the.
Yes, under that and
Policy or routine
timeline.
practice, policy or routine practice.
Just in the third one of, I mean, I guess it's reiterated both here and
Oh,
here.
third one. Oh,
I
So
think
just the
that's
third
what's
one,
really
yeah.
an issue. The other two deal more explicitly with policy, and so I think it's clear. Yes. And then my one other comment well, I guess two others actually. One is a bit to Sandra's comment about the training,
Yeah.
is to make clear that communication between federal immigration authorities and department office means anybody within that department or office. It's not just, does the head of it or somebody with a voice for that office, but if it's the front desk person, if it's the janitor, whoever it is, that it covers it as a whole.
So,
I'm not sure how
okay.
to,
All reports about communications of any Metro employee with federal immigration authorities, or something like
maybe,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, because you looked as if you had.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. Just constantly looking alert, Bob. All reports about communications with any Metro, between any Metro employee and federal immigration authorities?
Yes.
I'm sorry, where are we? Yes.
Oh, so we're at page 4, last paragraph. And I think Mary Catherine's point was, it's not just like the department head. Why don't we say between a Metro employee and, or any preference between Mary Catherine A or any?
I don't think so.
So now the last, and I will resend to be clear.
We're still
So she-
confused where we're putting this in.
Is it
It's
two?
to whom in the mayor's office, Metro Department's
Page
offices should
3.
report.
It's for,
Page 4.
I was looking here,
Oh, so the heading,
this is where they pointed
But it's
out.
the first sentence under that heading,
all reports about communications.
between a Metro employee and federal immigration authorities.
Fine, okay.
And that is to sort of clarify, lest anybody think it's like just the department head.
And I would say any, I think, rather than a.
Yeah.
Very clear.
And
Does that confuse about who makes the report to the mayor's office?
I'm wondering if it doesn't need to go someplace else.
But,
Yeah, I think it might.
Can we say
wouldn't it just go up to
I think-
Yeah, I mean,
whoever's in
it's-
charge in that department?
Yeah, let's not create something that implies a new report. We're talking about the reporting policy above.
so really it should change above
All
that.
reports generated by this reporting policy should be directed to.
Sure, I just want to then, so starting again on page 4 on that first 3 bullets, I'm just concerned that it could be read when it says communications between federal immigration authorities and the department office. I'm concerned that department office could be read in a very limited way.
Well, I understand that, and I think then we should
Change it to
resolve
that.
it up there, but
Or we
not
could
resolve
do
it down here.
That's fine, or is there a definition, isn't there a definition?
Well, you could go back to page
There's no definition
3,
section.
and which talks about policy recommendations related to reporting to the mayor's office about communication with federal immigration authorities, and you could
Yep.
insert it somewhere in here,
I agree.
which seems to be maybe the better
Yep,
spot.
that's great. So Tori, what do you think about that first sentence under that section? To ensure the mayor's office is aware of any communications, or of
I would say
communications
all and
with
then any.
Just communications.
of communications with federal immigration authorities and any Metro government employees, and to provide clarity for Metro residents. I guess that's not part of the policy, that's more of like a statement of purpose, though. But that would be, we could modify that sentence.
I think that, and then the next one says the task force recommends that the reporting
This
policy
is
apply to
all
all
Metro
government employees. So then
employees.
it's there and it's above, and
there.
I think that's sufficient.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's really already in there. You know, that second, under departments/offices to which
Yeah, all.
reporting policy should apply, we have to all Metro government employees except, and then
Yeah,
it seems to me that.
You think that's sufficient?
Yeah, well,
it says all.
I mean, I understand your concern, I just, I don't,
Be an easy place to. What about even just in the heading, the underlined heading, policy recommendations related to reporting to the mayor's office about communication between federal immigration authorities and any Metro employee? Then it's in the heading, it's clear, it's harder to miss, doesn't mess up with our other text.
And Metro employee. Everybody good with that? Policy recommendations related to reporting to the mayor's office about communication between federal immigration authorities and any Metro employee. Got it.
And then my final comment is just whether there is any timeline for the mayor's office or the New Americans office making things public. And that would be the final paragraph of page 4.
Making what public? This,
The reports.
Reports.
okay.
I mean, this recommends that the mayor's office of New Americans should seek transparency by posting such reports.
Can we
As
say
wonderfully wonderful.
timely posting?
Sure.
By timely posting such reports.
I want to say expediently.
All right, so just so the page 4, under to whom in the mayor's office, Metro Department's offices should report, we just added the word timely, should seek transparency by timely posting such reports. And I'll send out a red line version of this too, just in case.
Thank you.
I have a couple of things, but I think mine are more semantics than anything. So on page 3, the last paragraph on MNPS, it would be great to include something on Platter v. Doe that is just stipulated by federal law that immigration should not, or ICE agents be in school property. And here it says expose the students' undocumented status. I think it should be or any identifier beyond the scope of undocumented status. Without obtaining permission, I would say written communication or letter from guardians.
So I think I just took this directly from what MNPS said. I guess we can modify it, I mean,
What they said their policy was.
here comes MNPS. Perfect timing, hey.
You might want to turn around. Yeah, right.
For real. So get settled, and then we have a question for you, Hank.
Yes.
About the MNPS responses to the survey. Not a hard question, I promise. So Hank, you should have there a draft report. Yep, that's the one. And then the attachments. And the question that Juliana just raised refers to page 3 of the draft report. And it was just sort of trying to clarify the language describing MNPS practices about the Platter v. Doe and the sorts of information that cannot be disclosed. So I'm pretty sure that I took, this paragraph summarizes what Metro Schools said. I think I took it verbatim from your responses, but Juliana was suggesting some edits to it, and I just didn't want to do that until we talked to you, but here you are.
Okay.
So Juliana, do you want to,
So
and
yeah,
actually, let me just confirm real quick that that's actually, that I'm correctly describing the fact that this was pulled directly from what MNPS said. And you know what? I think the attachment that we have doesn't have that,
It was in
No,
the third
attachment.
paragraph.
it doesn't have the
Platter
attachment.
v. Doe, undocumented students.
It is in the one that we got from MNPS, but it's not, because it's, oh, here we go, federal law. Oh, so all you're asking to do is actually do a better job of transcribing what they wrote to this.
I wanted to make sure that it's clear that it's not the prohibited piece, is not a state thing, it's not a city, it's just a federal law that they are not allowed to go into school property.
Okay, so we could just say what they said here, right? So federal law and the United States Constitution, see Platter v. Doe, prohibits schools from discriminating on the basis of immigration status. MNPS does not ask about immigration status and does not disclose student information except when required by law. Just insert that. I think you're cool with that, it's just
Yeah,
taking.
but did you say something different?
No,
Just a second.
no, that's that. I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that it's a federal piece, not state or city. And the other piece was for permission. I think permission doesn't include written notification. People can just interpret permission very differently. So written consent is the third line
So now you're pulling from the attachment from
yours.
yes, but, so this is moving into, unless a subpoena is served, schools are prohibited from providing outside agencies.
No, that's what I'm looking for.
Can you help us, some of the
Yeah,
surveys
it's-
do not all clearly say who they're from?
They don't, and the part that Juliana's quoting is not, I don't think, in this
Okay,
attachment.
then I will stop looking for it.
Which, so,
I'm looking at the final report you sent us.
yes, so the one that Hank shared with us had as an attachment a piece that was from the Department of Education, I think, so that's not included here. So, Hank, I don't know if I have it on my laptop and I can pull it
You
up.
have it in the thing, the attachment?
I have the attachment, but I don't have the additional guidance about the subpoenas. my super, the way that parents can opt out of disclosing. Right, you're talking about something else, right, Juliana? You're not, are you talking about what's
So if
in
you go-
attachment?
Yes, page 3 of the document that we received actually today and over the weekend, where it says, the student's undocumented status without first obtaining permission from the student's parents.
Yes, and that quotes the attachment that you shared with us, that was the email from the Department of Education.
We should leave
That's
it.
not in this. No, we can just, but I think if we modify it, we've got to make sure we're modifying it consistent to that attachment, which
Okay.
you guys do not have in your packet.
Okay, so maybe we can review it once you send us.
And yes, I can, Audrey, do you have that full attachment? Or Hank, do you? I don't think I've got it in mine.
Are the attachments gonna have which department responded?
Mine does.
Because my only piece is on permission, right? I just want to make sure that it is clear what permission looks like.
Yeah, so Sandra, they say it at the top.
For the handouts?
Yeah, in the attachments, it
I
should
see
say
it,
the name of
okay.
the department at the top. And here, I can pull up, I would love to clarify this now so we don't.
Yeah, I'm also trying to.
Okay, cool. I think Audrey's looking for it.
I included this one.
That one.
It's in the packet after MMPS.
Yeah.
Right,
I
just
don't
flip
think
the,
it's-
right there.
Look at mine.
The supplement?
Yeah, it's in the old one, it's not in the new
Oh,
one.
okay, sorry, supplement didn't make it in.
So we can add the supplement in, I think that's the first thing. And then, Audrey, can I just see that for, oh, yeah, I've got it. All right, so, this is about the subpoena part. So it says, schools are prohibited from providing any outside agency with any information, then it says including INS, but I think they meant ICE, as we're just gonna, schools are prohibited from providing any outside agency with any information from a student's school file that would expose their undocumented status without first obtaining permission from the student's parents. The only exception is if a court order, parentheses, subpoena is served. However, parents may challenge such an order. This is due to FERPA, the federal privacy law. So I think what you're asking, Juliana, goes beyond what this says. So Hank, is that okay with you?
I'm sorry for my tardiness. What I'm trying to get caught up on is, aren't we discussing the section about saying what we reported, not what ought to be? And
Yes,
so-
we're discussing what we reported. Yeah.
And so I guess if we're saying something, are we saying something that better clarifies what we reported, or are we
Yes.
asking?
Yes.
Okay.
I think she's just talking about the different ways that you would obtain permission. So we would just be, the problem is we wouldn't be reporting, and we read that in the attachment. We would be reporting that there's a better way to say it.
Okay. And
That's what I said, it was just semantics, right? I don't want to
Oh, yeah.
overcomplicate this.
so repeat it for me one more time, what you want to say.
So the permission piece, or my question is, Sean, is this just a draft that you're going to send us again for review?
I would love to figure out all the edits here, so that when I send out something to you now, it's all changes that we've agreed on, so that I can make sure that everybody sort of consented.
And your paper looks different than mine, Juliana. Are you,
I think that's one you printed out, right?
okay.
There was some handed out, I kind of got mixed up, there was some handed out today, the final draft, and I probably brought my old draft, maybe that happened, so.
That's- yeah, me too.
The page numbers may throw some people off, but the final draft is going
Okay,
to.
Thank you, Sheriff, that's exactly where I was going. So, to clarify, there's 4 bullets here, is that what we're talking about, Juliana?
Yes.
We're talking about the 3rd bullet. All right, and then where on that 3rd bullet?
Third line.
3rd line.
I think it's obtaining permission. I think she wants obtaining written permission.
But is it in your?
But it's not in the original one. It just says permission. So then the question becomes, Hank, can we say written permission?
Give me 1 second.
Thank you. Now I'm looking at the new one.
I think that would be a goal. My hesitancy is, just don't want to get beyond the guidance of what was given.
You think that's something that the department
pull out
should
to-
have to decide on?
Well, this isn't like a should part. This is just like what we have reported part. Should, I completely agree. Written permission sounds good.
This is just a summary of current practice. So the question would be, is it the current practice that permission can
What
be
if we
given
said explicit permission? Would
without
that
obtaining
satisfy you?
explicit permission? That's fine with me.
Yeah.
All right, adding in the word explicit, without first obtaining explicit permission from the student's parents. Okay, done.
Shannon, I know that I sent you my comments by email, but when I look at everything that we're reporting, I just have a clarification. We are asking department to have a policy with regards to reporting to the mayor.
Yes.
Are we also, and I think maybe it's implied, do they have a policy itself in responding directly, not just to the mayor? Because I think we keep stressing that we want them to have a policy to report to the mayor, but shouldn't they have a policy about responding to ICE itself? That they should follow, that everybody needs to know about, and I don't want us to miss that by making sure it's just the mayor part that we all got clear without everybody knowing what they're doing internally, so.
I hear what you're saying, and I think there's an important difference between having a uniform policy about the way that you report to the mayor and a uniform policy about the way that you respond, right? And both of them are really important. Check me on this, but I think the scope of the work for this committee is just to describe the sort of discombobulated state of policies, right? There's not a uniform policy right now about compliance or responding to requests, and we're describing that in hopes to lay the foundation for some of that. But the thing that we're making recommendations on is just about that reporting piece.
So should we not say that it would be good to have the policy? I know.
Zulfa, I think that's probably a second
Second apple.
step that's not necessarily within the scope of this task force.
There is a part in it where we recommend that each department set a policy.
Yeah, we said that.
But is it about the reporting in it?
Okay.
And then, so in the cover letter, Zulfat, which you guys I sent around, but I'll send around a copy again, it really tries to emphasize, like, this is a first step. And I think that's really important for this, right? And we're gonna finish our work, and then the policymakers should make policy, and the advocates should advocate for making policy, but this is just one little piece of it.
I have a comment on page 4, under timeline for reporting and responding, the second bullet, where it says, seeking appropriate community input. I don't know if we need to go into detail about that. What does that look like? Is it just gonna be ambiguous, like they talk to someone who's an immigrant and they consider that input?
I think that was something that we put in order to try to, we were really struggling with how do we say it, what is a timely amount of time? All right, Bob, and we put that in to sort of emphasize that it couldn't be the day before the policy went into effect.
Right.
So I think it's
But
more of a time holder.
Given it's hard to predict what sort of circumstances could come up, so it's hard to, put a hard number in, but this is a directive that whatever circumstances, there needs to be opportunity for appropriate comment.
So it's more about time and not necessarily about,
Scope.
yeah.
At least when we talked about it before, I think that's the context in which we talked about it.
That's right, because even the sentence, should report to the mayor's office with sufficient time for the mayor's office to do these things.
Okay.
So they should assess and respond to the modifications, they should seek appropriate community input, and then they should talk to the mayor's office before they've made their decision. So yes.
And then to whom in the mayor's office we report. Can we just get someone from the administration just in the meantime while transitions are happening? if this gets adopted by the mayor's office sooner rather than later, I just want to make sure that we don't let anything fall through the cracks and the departments have something.
Sure. Yeah, yes, we can do that.
I think it's the question there.
Sorry, Councilman.
So what I hear that to say, like, if, as transitions are happening, maybe we could come to you or the community could use, as a staffer if there's some transition happening. Okay. So I think we don't need to include that in here, but y'all heard it here. That's your guy. Sheriff.
This is the least meaningful thing to clean up, but on page 3, the very last paragraph, we should say "to him" out of that paragraph.
Hey, thanks.
I had the same circle, gender neutral,
Gender
right here in my old one.
Well, hey, yeah, I get credit for being the gender neutral.
Thank you for being enlightened.
You know,
Far more than me, clearly.
I
with
cheated
my
on
gender
3 hours.
pronouns. All right, so I think we can just take out any pronouns there, right? Should recommend that these offices adopt a policy that is substantially similar and report whether they have adopted such a policy. No, actually, I think we need to say report to the mayor, not just like put it on their website. So this is page 3, last sentence now says, the mayor should recommend that these offices adopt a policy that is substantially similar and report to the mayor whether they have adopted such a policy. All right? What else you got? Okay, so next steps. I will make these changes and circulate a red line. But what I'm hearing is that everybody's comfortable with the changes that we just made. I won't make any changes beyond that, and I'll circulate a red line of them. So given that, and given my strong desire not to track you down at your place of work over the next 4 days and ask for your signature, I have a cover letter that I've dated Thursday, which is the day before our deadline to finish this report. I circulated the text to you guys over the weekend, but I would love, love, love to get your signature now so that I don't have to get it when we deliver this final report. So with your permission, I'm going to circulate this. Please read it over if you're comfortable with it, sign it, and just save us all a whole bunch of time.
And I have a question. So what is the next step moving forward? So the report will be submitted by Thursday, and then what is the next action step from the mayor's office?
I think that is a question for the mayor's office. I can speak about the task force. I mean, this task force was given a 60 days, or 60 days to complete our work. That 60 days expires on Friday. So from the task force's piece of it, we will wrap up our work. I mean, this is our last meeting. I will deliver this report with that letter by Thursday. And then from our perspective, as this group, we are done. So now the ball would be in the court of the mayor's office and other sort of policymakers and advocates around the table. I know that's all that I can speak to. But I'm gonna just put the mayor's office on the spot over here.
Yeah, I think between Bobby and I, we can come back and set a timeline. We acknowledge that we're gonna have the holidays in the middle of this, but certainly we'll provide this to the mayor and timeline something out and then communicate back to you all. So we have something that's clear about when the mayor will respond and what is implementable immediately versus with longer term. Is that fair? We're going to be doing this together.
That is very fair. Chris has something to say. I just put it in a spot because you work out.
Oh, and I turned around waiting for it.
All right, so just what I heard there is, once we deliver it, we'll hear from the mayor's office at some point soon about what their next steps will be and sort of the timeline around those next steps. Yep.
Yeah, and if the mayor has any clarifying questions or anything, we'll certainly come back to you.
Julie, does that answer your question? Is that, yeah. have completed the two substantive things that we needed to do, which is look at sample policies and review the draft. And so I guess though there is a placeholder in your draft that says we looked at some sample policies. I might need to update a sentence or two in that piece, but I'll still say, I don't even know if I do. So I'll do that, but there's nothing that will be substantively changed. Anything else on the draft report? Okay. Well, I'm so glad because now we have plenty of time for the folks from the public who've joined us to come and share their thoughts. So let's do that. And I wonder if there's Audra or somebody from Mayor's office staff. Could you all take notes also, just to make sure we're capturing all the feedback from the public? Great. All right, Audra, who is the first person on our list?
Elizabeth Almaraz.
Come to the front. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Sure.
Hello, everyone.
Repeat your name.
Elizabeth Almaraz. And I am with Conexión Américas, and I'm also a council member on the Mayor's New American Advisory Council. So I think that a huge part of I would like to thank the Mayor's office and you all for being a part of this task force. I think this is a great initiative on shedding light on immigration. And I think that the different components of where events have happened and now ideas of how we need to handle them. I think a huge part of it definitely has to be of education and understanding of who is this federal agency, what do they look like, what can they do, where can they be, and how we are required to respond. And I think more than anything, also a huge part is how we mentioned the transition. So right now, you all creating, information for having the mayor's office review for policy, and we're going to be in charge of, providing that information and having hopefully transparency. But right now, we're kind of at a standstill because right now we don't have a director for the office. So I think that my big thing is just, as far as a position, because once you all finish and transfer it to him, how quick is the transition? And especially because there's nobody in that spot right now. So I think those are my big things, is the director, someone who will be in that position, and also just the importance of the education, and who is allowed, as it was mentioned about not just the organization or the department, but anybody that is there, especially the importance of like front desk or people around, because it could just be, sometimes intimidation. Well, this is a federal agent or an officer or someone, and so you think that you have to comply, but I feel like really understanding what are the boundaries and what can be done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, I thought it was just the sign-in sheet,
Okay.
but she's speaking for us
Okay.
three.
We were a little confused as to whether that was just the sign-in sheet or the sign-in sheet to speak. So I'm just gonna, okay, great. So hi, my name is Britannia Poon and I work at the Nashville Public Defender's Office. I'm an attorney there, as well as Michaela and Cindy. So we're just here to kind of represent our office. In terms of kind of questions and concerns, most of the things that we're seeing kind of on the ground in the sheriff's department, with police departments, with the jails, in our office, the DA's office, those are mainly technical questions. And so, I didn't really want to bring them to the table today. So I think my question is just who, either in the mayor's office or who in the task force, who should we direct those questions to, in what way? Is it appropriate to try and create some sort of sit down or, email? So I guess my question is, who should we be contacting with these concerns that are kind of on the day-to-day basis, as well as just general policy questions that we see with our clients? And so we just wanted to kind of come today and just kind of hear your thoughts and so forth. So if you have any questions for us too, we're
we're welcome to answer those, but if you could just get back to me as who we should contact.
Great, thank you so much for being here. And yeah, so we'll probably have some follow-ups from these, and we'll capture that, and
Yeah.
I'm sure the appropriate person will get back to you.
Okay, great.
Thank you all for being here.
Michaela?
That's what I said. It's not being able to read.
Kathy, how are you?
Hello. My name is Kathy Cajillo. I'm with the group The Mix, an immigrant advocacy group here. A couple of points that I'll be touching on are probably things that you guys have already discussed in this task force. First of all, thank you for making this meeting public. I think it's really important for the communities that are going to be affected by these policies and procedures to understand what's happening and the people that are representing them in the room. The very first point, of course, that comes directly to us from the community is that the city is going to be involved in these situations regardless of what the practices or procedures or policies have been or are going to be. There's some kind of involvement here, whether it's through employees or whether it's through Metro Police or whether it's through any other system, there's some kind of involvement here by the city. The second point that I want to bring is because of that involvement, a lot of the families and a lot of the communities that have been in these situations that have faced what's happening so far are deeply expressing a sense of disappointment, of sadness, and anger towards the reaction and inactions of the city towards what's happening in this moment, especially towards the lack of representation and the lack of protection for them, which is why for us it's very important to understand what's going on here and what are the recommendations that are going towards the mayor's office. These policy and procedures need to be put in order, and there needs to be policy and procedures followed up on, and we want to know what that follow-up is going to be. And from part of the community, it's going to be going towards the mayor's office to really ask what is the timeline for the response for these procedures and when they're going to be enacted. Because as you guys mentioned today in this meeting, there is no policy on how they're going to respond, right, on how these employees respond. And that to us is vital because as we have seen so far, the response has been alienating to us. We know that, this is really hard work, but we're super concerned about the use of the city's resources to go towards these things that are facilitating family separation. And it continues to bring more and more stories to light where injuries are now being sustained. And how is the city going to be held accountable for that when a report says something, but the reality of the things were something else, when people are actually having to be transported to medical facilities for treatments, or where the people involved in these arrests are badly hurt, but the city in there doesn't respond to that in that sense. So I want to thank you for being part of this task force, for being part of the committee that creates these policies and procedures, but understanding that beyond that, there is still follow-up that needs to be done, whether it's by this task force or whatever it will be. We are keeping an eye on the situation, and we are making sure that this is happening through and through, and that, whether it be policies for MNPD or whether it be policies for federal employees, that it gets followed through. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Paige Cantrell, and I just changed everything I was gonna say based on something you were gonna say. I'm probably gonna be, I'll be honest, the least liked person in the room, so it's okay. And I'm not here to offend anybody, I'm just here to tell my truths. I work with angel families, with Don Rosenberg, Mary Ann Mendoza, Agnes Gibney. Wendy Corcoran and Avery Corcoran out of Knoxville are two of my best friends. Their son Pierce was killed in Knoxville. It'll be a year ago in a few days. And what made me think of it when you talked about families being separated, they've lost their son and they're permanently separated. Now my question is gonna be for you, Mary Ann, and Mary Catherine, and I'm gonna call you Miss Mary Catherine because I do not want to mispronounce your name.
It's fine.
So I just want to be respectful for that. My question goes out to you, and I guess to you now because y'all work there too. We have this task force set up to protect people from fear, and that's good. No child should go to school and be in fear. Period. Nobody should show up at their school and be in fear. And I understand communities living in fear. I get that. When someone's arrested by ICE, or arrested by Metro. I know Metro doesn't ask immigration status. I know at the sheriff's department, fingerprints are the only thing that gets them. But if they're arrested, if the recidivism rate, if they're arrested repeatedly, do you contact ICE then, Miss Mary Catherine?
And I think what we'll do is take the questions and then folks will get back to you after the meeting.
Okay, are they contacted then? Because if they are arrested repeatedly, or let's say somebody's arrested for a DUI or a domestic violence, and they're repeatedly arrested, or with anything, what happens, where's the protection for us? Because I have a list, I have pictures here of multiple people that were permanently separated from their families too. And while I want you to be protected, I'm not saying I'm not saying your immigration status. I'm not assuming that for anybody. But while I want people to be protected, we deserve protection too. You know, and what the best answer to be would be to help people get a lawyer to get their immigration status settled and to help them get help. But this is Pierce, my best friend's child. He was buying a house and he paid for his funeral. You know, and I'm sorry about people being separated from their family.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Vanessa Delgado.
I thought it was a sign.
Okay. I just handed a piece of paper and I was like, sorry, that's cheating. I might as well.
Okay.
I put my name on the sheet.
That's right, you followed the process, so
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Hi everyone, my name's Vanessa. I'm here with the Mix. So I just kind of want to echo what Kathy said. You know, like I appreciate everyone being here. I appreciate something happening, that we're having public commentary, that people are coming out and sharing what we think should or should not happen in Nashville. And yeah, I just think it's really important that everyone in this room continuously listens to other people who are on the ground, who are micro, meso, macro, and like seeing the differences in what we all experience every day. But really just like echoing what Kathy said, because we have very similar in a lot of what she says, and that, you know, family separation isn't based on like what you look like. You know, it's not like people's color of their skin, but it does disproportionately affect certain people more than other people. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Tom.
Hi. Happy day.
Well, you see your whole name, I can't quite read your handwriting.
It's Negri, N-E-G-R-I. I know many of you around the room, and thank you for all being here and coming together on this issue, and thank the mayor for discussing these policies. I think we're about 5-6 years too late. The communities that we're talking about, and it's all communities, all new arrivals, all right, are living in fear now. All right, when their kids go to school, all right, they're wondering whether or not they're going to see them. So it's important that this policy not sit on someone's desk. And if you haven't read it, please do. Nashville Next. The changing demographics in our city means it's important that not only does this policy get done, right, that it be implemented with the full community. Right? And it's not only Latinos, but it's everyone who's a new arrival. And it's not only the undocumented, but the documented. All right? Everybody has to be a part of whatever new policies are coming down the pike. All right? And it has to be succinct, real, and distributed. And we could leave it to some of those, Connection Americans and Turk and everybody else in the room, all right, to assist in that. But it really has to come from the mayor's office, all right? And we need to show leadership in this, because if we don't, we fall behind. And I'll step back once again, because we've worked together before. And I'm particularly concerned about the demographics reflecting in Davidson County's employees, because it's not. Less than 2% of Davidson County employees are Latinos. By 2035, that figure will be nearly 40%. And if we go down that list, all right, the new arrivals are not being employed by Metro. There's a lot of reasons, but you got to figure out why not. Because if you don't figure out why not, they're not going to be supervisors or managers in 5 or 10 years, all right, when they will be the majority of our community. So now's the time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Was there anyone who wanted to speak that I did not acknowledge or have on this list?
Okay, let's talk about next steps. Think you all have the letter with all of your signatures. I will make those revisions. I will send out the red line. There were some to-do items from our public comments. I think probably Sheriff and Mary Catherine for you guys most directly. I know Audra has everybody's email addresses, so I might suggest that you just get those email addresses and then respond as you can. And I think that's it, guys. So I will plan to get this to the mayor's office Thursday. If I hear from them like, oh my gosh, can you please get it to us Wednesday, then maybe I would do that. But in any case, before I do that, I will circulate for you the redlined draft report. Any other business before we conclude?
Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you. Thank you guys. We are adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.